Hey, how's it going, ladies and gentlemen of YouTube? My name is Ian and I'm with Good Form Sports Cards. It's a pleasure to have you here with me on my debut video of my brand new channel. We'll see how I do. It's my first crack at a video, but I've been thinking of starting a channel for a long time, so it's about that time to just jump in and see how it goes. So a little bit about me. I've been in the hobby pretty much my whole life. How I remember it getting started was I had some neighborhood kids that kind of had some sports cards shown to me for the first time. I didn't know a lot about it, but it was right at the time there was the Dodgers and Oakland World Series in, I think it was 88, 89, somewhere in there. I was already kind of watching it as a kid with the family at night. Had already kind of just chosen my team. I liked the colors that Oakland had. I liked the McGuire and Canseco and just the whole team they had. I really liked them. One of the neighborhood kids had some 88 Topps cards and, you know, had the, I think it was like the Walt Weiss Cup card and some other cards that were of interest to me. For whatever reason, I just, as a kid, I was drawn to them, and it's kind of been that way ever since. So baseball was my first love. I said I was McGuire and Canseco. Barry Bonds at a young age, I really liked him pretty much through his whole career. Probably the player that I collected the most cards and memorabilia of growing up was Kenny Lofton. Loved how he played. He made it look fun. I grew up in Minnesota, so he just killed the Twins constantly, but I got to watch him a lot because he was in the Midwest. He was just an overall fun player. You know, people that like who they like for whatever reason, and that was the player I liked. I think he could pretty much do everything I couldn't. I was kind of big and slow, and he was small and fast, and he could, you know, he could just do everything. Right around that time, I really started taking a liking to football and basketball cards as I went through middle school and high school. As we transitioned out of the 80s and into the 90s, it was a good time for sports. Primarily for me, I really took a liking to the New York Knicks. And when Jordan took his hiatus for baseball, of course the Knicks had their two, you know, good runs there in the East, and it was just so fun to watch. I really enjoyed that, and I have very fond memories of it still. During that series, although Patrick was the star, I really liked John Starks. I felt like he was the spark plug, and when he kind of got going, Madison Square Garden really just kind of was electric, and he was a little spark plug for that team. Then, of course, Charles Oakley, I loved him. He was sneaky dirty, if you want to call it that, but he was just tough. Nobody wanted to mess with him. You knew when he was in the game, no nonsense was going to happen. The New York Knicks were in control of what was going on the floor. So I really love those two players. Growing up in Minnesota, obviously, well, maybe not obvious to all of you, but to those of us here, it's the state of hockey, something that we're pretty proud of here in Minnesota. The North Stars left Minnesota at a young age. For me, I knew I still loved hockey, but my fandom wasn't for sale. I wasn't going to automatically love a Texas team. So searching I guess throughout the league at that age, I always really liked the Toronto Maple Leafs. So at that time, they were a tough, gritty team, much like Charles Oakley was. That tends to be what I'm drawn to as we go through this video and I tell you a little bit about who I collect in PC. They're not necessarily the most flashy, expensive players, but they're the hard-working, maybe under-recognized players. So I really liked that team. They were really tough. Ty Domi was my favorite player. Probably one of the better enforcers of all time. Again, there would be a good argument that he is dirty, or was at times, so you got to be that way to back your team up, so I stand by him. With that, you know, you had Wendell Clark, and Dean, Cujo, Gilmore was there for a few years, loved it when he was there. Really just kind of took a liking to them, and when Minnesota got their team back, the Wild kind of became 1B, but Toronto was still 1A. So I mentioned a minute ago that I started to get into football and basketball. I was in school, and then I kind of transitioned away from that oddly, so I'm going to get back on course here and talk a little bit about football, which now is probably right up there with hockey with me. I watch a lot of football and probably primarily collect, I won't say flip, I would say invest or long-term invest in football. Sticking to that early 90s period of time, there was, I guess, a freak accident that happened in the NFL. I don't know if many of you remember this, but there's a promising linebacker that the New York Jets had named Dennis Byrd. He was attempting a sack from the edge. The quarterback, which I believe was Steve DeBerg, stepped up in the pocket, and he kind of head-on collided with his own teammate and was paralyzed. So that was something that I remember vividly, and it kind of really made me, I don't know, it made football really almost very real. It kind of took them away from being athletes. You see the human in them. And it made me kind of start pulling for the Jets a little bit. I wanted to see well for them and to see Dennis do well. And he had his Rise and Walk book that he wrote where he did will his way to walk. And that was, I wish I could say it was a miracle comeback or something like that, and it's kind of sad that it was a traumatic thing, but that's where I remember seeing that and really being drawn to the New York Jets, and have been a fan ever since. I made a couple AFC title games in my life, but that's about it. Still in that rebuild. That being said, I really like some of the hard workers on the team. That's who I PC. I really like Nick Mangold's probably one of my all-time favorite Jets. Al Toon, Curtis Martin, Brickshaw Ferguson, Kyle Clifton I like a lot. He stuck with them, was kind of unsung over the years. That's my team. Of course, living in Minnesota, I do follow the Vikings and want to see well for them as well. But I don't really PC any Vikings players. As far as basketball goes, I talked a little bit about that with the Knicks. That's pretty much what I follow, what I PC. My local team is the Timberwolves, which they were good for a while when Garnett was here. Got to go to some of those playoff games, and they haven't been back much since. But I really do like their core of players. When they're all healthy, actually play pretty well. So it's a matter of keeping them healthy and building around them and just not continuing to blow the team up. So we'll see how the Timberwolves do. As far as the Knicks go, PC players are John Starks, Charles Oakley, a little bit Allen Houston, and then just sometimes I just see something I like and I want it, and that's it. So I would say the only player that doesn't really fall into that realm is Vince Carter. Man, Vince Carter, he might be my favorite player of all time. He is, no question, the best in-game dunker. I don't care what anybody else has to say. Sorry, but there's nobody that could dunk in-game better than him. Represented us well for Team USA. Just a stand-up guy. Only good to say about him. So love Vince Carter. He's probably the odd one that I collect that doesn't really isn't affiliated with any teams I really like, but he just is a player I just really like and respect. That's a little bit about my history, kind of what I like and why, what I do in the hobby. What I collect, I couldn't tell you if I wanted to. I'll go in with a plan a lot of times, and sometimes it's just like when you go to a card shop or a car show, you're going to look for something specific and you leave with something that you didn't plan on, and that's one of the things I love about the hobby. Is there's so much out there, stuff you don't even know exists. It's fun. What I particularly enjoyed when I first got into cards, I've always had a very analytical mind, and I really loved making money. Even as a kid, I loved making money. So there was something about going into the local card shop, finding a card that I knew was undervalued, whether it be because I studied the crap out of my Beckett or I just knew what I could trade to one of my friends for something that they had or whatever that might be. I was already into that at a young age. So where I first got a taste of that and knew that I wanted to really be around it a lot, well, I think it was 92 or 93 when Pat Listach was really hot for the Milwaukee Brewers, and it's kind of a neck-and-neck Rookie of the Year battle between him and Kenny Lofton. And so, of course, I was pulling for Lofton. But Listach was played really well and ended up winning the award. And the next year in the Donruss Diamond Kings insert sets, he had one in there. It was, I don't know, at the time it was probably $10 maybe. So I found this card floating in a box or a bin, one of those dollar bins at the local shop, and I couldn't believe it was in there. It was probably something that got in there before he got hot or whatever it was. But I scooped that card up, and then I knew right away, like, oh, I can just trade this off next week or whatever, and I did. So I brought it in there, and I think I got like $6 in trade, got maybe 2-3 packs of something, and I thought that was the greatest thing ever. I'm thinking, wow, I don't even have to pay full price for this. I just, instead of paying $6 in cash from that lawnmower job I did, I can just buy this $1 card and turn it into that. So seeing the ability to do that at a young age was very lucrative to me. Now, of course, discovered it was not quite as easy as I thought it was. It took a lot of digging and a lot of being aware of what's out there. Of course, when I was that age, there was no internet, so you really had to know your stuff. There was no, I'm going to look up a comp. There was nothing. Like, you just had to know your product. You had to know your players. And I credit a lot of that to the video games then. I mean, playing like RBI baseball and Griffey and stuff like that, is you would remember everybody's stats and who had the most home runs each year. And I mean, to this date, I probably still remember most of them. So if anybody tells you video games are bad, I'm going to tell you there's value in them. So whether it be remembering needless stats or whatever you want to call it, it was something good for me. So that's what drew me into the hobby, and what kind of keeps me around is how it constantly, you can still have that same concept, but it evolves with technology. So you started to see like grading come into play, and there's a way to take those junk wax cards, which weren't really rare, but it made them more rare. Now you can get that 1 in a 10 that separates it from the pack. It's not really just you trading with your buddy. I'll trade you my ding corner card for your white edge card over there, and we'll call it square, right? Like, there's nothing wrong with that, but this took it, like, this added another layer to it that was, allowed me to transition into that adolescent view into like more of an adult view. That was appealing to me. And then from there, you started getting, better cards. So the insert started transitioning into like game used memorabilia and autographs, and then, super short prints and serial numbers and parallels and all this kind of stuff that's like, whatever you want to collect, you can. And probably the days of collecting every single version of a card that a guy has are probably over. It's pretty difficult. I mean, for everybody to say, I'm going to collect every Shohei Ohtani, there's only one super fractor rookie. Now, bring it to present day, so you have all those things still in play with, you still need to know your product, you still need to know your players, you still need to be knowledgeable about the sport. I mean, you could have all the data at your fingertips, but you still have to understand what you're doing to be good at it. You still have to be invested in it and like it. You can't just, there was a window that we all saw, 2020, where you couldn't miss. You just send something in, get it graded for $10, you get it back, and the margins are so huge. I mean, people making crazy money on, Gavin Lux Topps paper, which you can go get it for, PSA 10 of that now for $10. So here we are, present day. There's still money to be made for those that are passionate about it. The greater and more well-rounded your skill set is, the better that you'll be set for the current and long-term growth, I guess, of your card portfolio. It really comes down to what your risk assessment is and what you want to do. But we can save those for some other videos. I'm really just here to kind of give you a little introduction and talk a little bit about my own background. So that's a little bit about my history in the hobby and a little bit about why I'm here. So the channel Good Form Sports Cards, why is it called Good Form? So what I do when I'm not working and playing around with sports cards is I spend several hours a day in the gym, mostly just doing powerlifting. Compete a little bit, not as much as I'd like to. It really just comes down to time. But so what I learned from when I started at the gym to what I know now, notice that kind of the path of training follows very close to the path that I learned in the hobby. It's like when you come in and you think you look back to that time later and realize you didn't know. So Good Form Sports Cards is really, I got better in the gym when I was able to train with good form. Right? What is good form, right? I guess the short answer to what good form would be in the gym would be to do a movement properly, to activate or stimulate the muscle that you're looking to target, and do so in a way that you're not going to hurt yourself. So move over to the hobby now. How would you purchase, or how would you sell, or how would you deal with other members of the hobby with good form? Well, that is going to be what my channel is about. Is I want to make sure that my experience in the hobby as a buyer, as a seller, and as somebody that just interacts with you online is positive, and that I do things properly in a way that everybody benefits and is activated and stimulated and not hurt. So as corny as it sounds, it's important to me. That's the real reason I guess I would say that I'm here. Is it's not to be hey, look at me, I'm online, but that's not why I'm here. Monetize and think I'm going to make millions of dollars recording videos. If that was to happen down the line, I would just invest whatever the channel makes back into the channel. So whether it be giveaways or equipment to make my recording or audio better, whatever that is, that would be the point. It's not, I'm not looking to come into this and kind of take in a parasitic way and not give back. It's actually the opposite. Is I spent a lot of time, especially over the pandemic, being quarantined, watching a lot of YouTube videos about what a lot of other people in the hobby were doing and seeing and experiencing, and it was so valuable to me. And there's so many that I watch every day or when I have time, you know, certainly weekly. And they do such a good job. Their production quality is so good, and they have guests, and they put so much work in. I mean, you could just tell the amount of research that, to just mention a few people, like Neil always has his weekly market updates. You can always tell that he's already spent time looking at charts, and then records a video and edits it. I mean, there's probably hours of work into just that one video, and I have a lot of respect for that. I mean, it's not something that people like that have to do. I mean, I really respect the hustle. I mean, they're putting out regular content. It's not easy. As I said before, I've thought about doing this before. I've actually recorded some before, and then I started looking into the editing and all the work that goes into it, and I was just like, oh man, this is really overwhelming. So tip of the cap to those that have been doing it. That's why I'm here, is really to give back what I've already taken from others. If I could share my experience and maybe help some others in the way that those people helped me, that would be very rewarding to me. I would love to be able to answer questions or get involved in some banter with people that say, hey, your take on, you know, Barry Bonds being the GOAT's BS, and here's why. I'd love to listen to it. I'm open for debate, but that's really what I'm about and why I'm here, is just to make sure that I'm putting back into the hobby what I'm taking from it. So we'll see how it goes. If you made it this far, I appreciate you sticking with me. This is video number 1, but there'll be more to come. Got some other fun things cooking. I got some purchases that I've made that I'm ready to share with you. Some other chase cards for you that I'll also be sharing, stuff that I'll be looking to acquire during the year, and kind of share that journey with you as I hopefully locate some of these cards and add them to my collection. And then some other data and analytics sort of videos that I've done on some of the platforms I sell on, to show you why I sell certain places and why not on others, and what benefits and rewards I see from that. So look for those to come very soon. But if you've made it this far, thank you very much. This is my crack at video number 1. Hope that you enjoyed it. If you do, give me a like, a subscribe here early. I promise I won't disappoint. You'll have regular content coming, and we'll see you soon.